I wanted to be at Texas State. I chose to be at Texas State. I'm from Texas. That was important to me. I always knew if the right guy got this job, you better watch out.
You better watch out. This is Win Now or Get Bent, episode 157. If you don't already know, I'm Kev Tardello, coming to you on Tuesday, June 25th, and class of 2025 is in the house. Oh, perfect, it being June 25th. That's right, 4 new Bobcats in the bag for 2025. We'll talk all about them. We'll talk all about the Bobcats that are actually going to play this fall a little bit. We got some good stuff for you this episode. We got Tubes versus Lambos going down on social media. We've got plenty of rat poison to talk about. It's summer. It's the dog days of summer. It's hot outside. Not a ton to talk about, but we've got plenty here at Win Now or Get Bent. Before we get there, though, this episode is brought to you by TGC, the Galindo Collective, TGC LLC at thegalindocollective.com. That's GALINDO, galindocollective.com. A team of professional consultants dedicated to helping others realize their business potential through people, planning, and practice. Their services cover a wide range of areas such as business strategy, marketing, human resources, and financial planning. If you own property or a business and want to maximize its profitability, contact TGC at thegalindocollective.com. That's GALINDO, galindocollective.com. And follow their social media platforms on Twitter, X, at TGC_LLC, and on Instagram and Facebook at the Galindo Collective. Shout out to Rick Galindo, a true Tech State sicko, a Tech State grad. He's been with us since last year, since before last season, rocking with us for a long time, still with us. Shout out to my guy, Rick. He just took a new position in San Diego, so he's going to be a Bobcat expatriate, I guess, of Texas for a little bit at least. He'll be back, and I know he'll be cheering on his Bobcats and getting back whenever he could. But shout out to my guy Rick Galindo. Great stuff going on for him and the Galindo Collective. Check them out, thegalindocollective.com. We are also sponsored by Chilzey.com, CHILLZEY, Chilzey.com. You can get, where are they? Oh, here we go. You can get custom koozies, bam. You can get custom tumblers, bam. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, Win Now or Get Bent on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. You can see me holding up the tumblers and the koozies right here. You can get them custom made on Chilzey, CHILLZEY.com. You can get them custom made, any logo that you want on there, a work logo, a family insignia for a union, who knows, whatever you need. Hey, even if you want to get the Win Now or Get Bent one, go for it. If you order 6 or more of these tumblers right here that I'm holding with any logo that you want, you punch in Bobcats at your checkout. They're $15 a piece, which is a great deal. I was just at Whitecap Beach in Corpus Christi. I brought both of these with me. They kept me going through the trip. That was nice. Nice little vacation. I'm very refreshed. I've got the glasses on. I know it. I probably seem a little tired, but much needed break for me. And thanks to Chilzey.com, CHILLZEY, made it even better. So check them out. Owned and operated by a true Texas State sicko, a Texas State grad, Dennis Redding. I think he's down in South Texas, actually, kind of where I was, maybe in Kingsville, I believe. But yeah, shout out to my guy Dennis. He hooked us up last season. I handed out a bunch of those koozies. We're gonna have more of those promotions coming up this summer. I saw after the last episode, some people already requesting some. I got you. If you want one, reach out to me. I'm gonna get you a koozie. We're gonna be handing out some good stuff because y'all have been great to us. All these sponsorships, hitting up our merch site, all that good stuff. So it's time we give back a little bit, you know. And I know I personally have been lagging on the episode output this year, you know. As you know, the baby boy got here. He's doing great. Going to be 3 months here in about a week. So that's been great. He's come a long way. He's a big Bobcat these days. But yeah, that was a long one for Chilzey. Check out Chilzey, CHILLZEY.com. But okay, let's get to the episode. Let's get to these Bobcats. Between the last episode and now, I put out this really big article, College Football Network. Some of you know that I work there. If you haven't tuned in a bit, no longer at the Statesman, I'm at collegefootballnetwork.com now. And I was given a great assignment where they said deep dive into these Bobcats, with all this, especially with GJ Kinney going back to last year with all these transfers and everything, because keep writing about them, talking about them, all these transfers even coming in. We spent a lot of time on it last episode talking about these guys who are in. So really, it needed to break down the numbers. And now we're just talking about transfers, not talking about the recruiting classes as a whole, because the whole class last year was 53. This class this year it might be in the 40s. I know they're at 28 transfers. They've got a handful of high schoolers as well in that 2024 class. A lot of them who are already there. Brad Jackson, we talked about the quarterback. There's some guys who are already on campus and they were at spring ball. But just talking about transfers since GJ Kinney has got here, we've talked about how he's transfer portal maven, going out there, getting all these guys. It has been 47. Oh, I'm sorry, 67 total transfers since he's gotten here. Last year's class in 2023, and then this year's class, 39 last year, 28 so far this year. Could be more. And that number could be higher than I realized. 28 is the confirmed number. Now we're not counting guys like Jaden DeLora came in and they're gone. But we are counting Toonmies Adelaide, who I've said before, wasn't sure if he was going to be back in the mix. Seems like he is. He is going to be in there. So that's good to hear. Big Michigan State defensive lineman transfer. But of those 67, and if you want to read this full article, I'm just going to talk about the highlights of it, and we'll move on, talk about some other stuff, the 2025 commit specifically. It's pinned on my X page, Twitter. Gosh, I'm even saying X first now. That's, man, it's been ruined. That website, I'll be honest, I barely scroll it these days. It is just, I don't know what happened to it, but it is falling apart. But I have that article pinned on there if you want to check it out. I was pretty proud of that article. It seemed like a lot of you already read it, so I do appreciate that, putting those clicks on that page. But of those 67 transfers from 2023 and the 2024 class so far, 47 of them will be playing in this upcoming season. Obviously, the 28 that they're getting for 2024, they're already set to come in the fall. But 19 of the 39 from last year will be back. That's a pretty great retention rate when you consider the transfer portal era, where you're losing a lot of guys, and not to mention a lot of those transfers from last year were just one-year guys. A lot of them came in and then graduated after their season. So to have 19 coming back from that class is pretty great, because that's a lot of guys who played a lot. We'll even go through. Pretty sure I have that here. Those 19 names. Yeah, the 19 guys that transferred in. Now we're talking 4-year transfers, not talking JUCO, not talking high school guys who are new. We're talking 4-year transfers using that transfer portal specifically. Here's those 19. Ish Mahdi, you know him. Joey Hobart, you know him. Nash Jones, you know him. You know all of them. What am I talking about? Jameto Abibo, Emeko Abibo, the twin brothers from Incarnate Word. Dorian Strawn, another Incarnate Word guy. Caleb Culp, Cole Wilson, Drew Donley, Connor Fox, Tavian Coleman, Devin Wright, Joshua Eaton, Darius Jackson, who we're going to see this season. He missed last season. Mizzou transfer at safety. I've been told to really expect him in the mix. I think we talked about that on the last episode when talking about that safety position. You know, with Torrey Spears, seems like he's still coming along from that injury, season-ending injury last season. But Darius Jackson, who had a season-ending injury last year, didn't play at all. He'll be back and he'll be in the mix. Could be even a starter. Alex Harkey, Colorado offensive lineman. Chase Todd, he's going to be the starting center. Watch out for that. Houston, he's transferred in from Houston. Christian Rory, Duke, big defensive lineman. We got a great interview with him. Me and the Wizard, our great producer, Zach Webb. We got a great interview with him last year at spring practice, and we kind of got in a little bit of trouble with that. Coots is gone, so I can talk about that. Yeah, we got in a little bit of trouble. It was okay. It was just a slap on the wrist. Not supposed to talk to interview recruits on campus. Whoops. Lesson learned. Who knows? It's the Wild West these days. So maybe we could do it now. Caleb Coleman, defensive back from West Virginia. I'm pretty sure he's back. I don't know why. I think I'm just mixing him with Jalen Shelton. They were both West Virginia defensive back transfers from last year. And Jalen Shelton is off the UTEP. Caleb Coleman, he's back. Okay, Caleb Coleman's back. Sorry, you saw me. You heard me work that out in person, on the fly right there. But he's more of a nickel back, playing that star position is what they call it. That safety corner hybrid, safety corner linebacker hybrid. It's an interesting one. That nickel corner, especially how they use it. And then Langston Anderson, Oklahoma State wide receiver. He got in really late. I don't know if you remember in fall camp last year. Victor Obi, the Baylor defensive lineman, he transferred in like right before the season started. So did Langston Anderson. But he is back. So those are the 19 that are back. And a lot of those guys that I listed played a lot of ball last year. I mean, at the top, Ish Johnson, of course, Joey Hobart, of course. Some would say they are the best at their position in the conference. Ish Mahdi, the best running back, Joey Hobart, the best receiver. And I say I say that that's what's going on there. Nash Jones might even be up there for one of the best offensive linemen. Cole Wilson, all the stats he put up, he's a young guy too, and they still have him for a good while. But those are guys they just retained from last year's class, and then they're adding it with the 28 that we've talked about a lot. We can go through them real quick though. Who doesn't like naming dudes? It's summertime, right? What else are we going to talk about? But I mean, the 28 that are going to come in, these are the ones that transferred in before spring practice. Got Jordan McLeod at quarterback. Toon Mees Adelaide, just discussed him. Michigan State. Alex Merritt, Eastern Michigan defensive lineman. Stephen Parker, Incarnate Word defensive lineman. Jalen Jenkins, Washington State running back. Torrance Burgess, UTEP running back. Deion Hankins, UTEP running back. Two different UTEP running backs. And then this guy, UTEP corner, Trez Moore. Dante Thompson, corner from Arkansas State. James Neal, linebacker from UTEP, getting a lot of UTEP guys. Max Harris, linebacker from ULM. Talik Lockett, offensive lineman for ULM. And if you see a lot of these preseason rankings, a lot of them have Talik Lockett really high. And, he was second team all Sun Belt last season at ULM. Jaden Williams, wide receiver, Boston College. Bo Sparks, wide receiver, Utah Tech. Bryce Bass, edge, Gardner Webb. And Blake Smith, tight end, Oklahoma. Those are the guys they got in before spring practice. And then after spring practice, they got RJ Martinez, QB from Baylor, Manny Nunnery, linebacker from Florida, Traylon Payne, linebacker from Houston. Police Lange, defensive lineman from Houston. Gosh, I tried to pronounce it right the last time. I even looked up the pronunciation, but Houston hit him with the 404, which means they deleted his bio page on there. So I don't have that pronunciation I had last time. I even tried to look it up. David Connor, offensive lineman, Colorado. Martin Tyne, offensive lineman, Cal. Sully Burns, offensive lineman, Tulane. Ian Langford, offensive lineman, TAMU Commerce, Texas A&M Commerce there. Jalen Griffin, wide receiver, Tulane. Griffin Moore, tight end, Illinois. Caden Groggins, corner, Lamar. And Jordan Polk, corner from Texas A&M Commerce. Those are all the transfers. That's 55% of the scholarship rosters for the Bobcats are guys that transferred in since GJ Kinney got here. 4-year transfers that came in. We've even mentioned the JUCO guys or the guys that they had before all that. Ben Bell was here before that. He was a player that was inherited by this staff, and he's paying a lot of dividends. It's this team is loaded. Is basically what I'm trying to get at. Is it was loaded last year, by Texas State standards. It was loaded last year. Now by everybody's standards, it's loaded. It's pretty great to see. And then for 2025, I hinted at it a little bit. 2025 has entered the chat. They are finally on the board now. I say finally, but it's still so early. They can't even sign anybody from there till December. But they're still working it, getting these guys to come in. They were able to get 4 commits last week in a 24-hour period. That's something I've noticed with the high school commit specifically with GJ Kinney and these guys is it really comes in waves. It's when one commits, there's going to be others that are going to follow suit real soon. And these are 4 players that are really good. And we'll go through their offers, who they were offered by here in a sec, but I'll just list them out right now. Cordorian Powell, he's a corner from Royce City. Kevon Carter, linebacker from Wagner. Nick Fisher, he's an edge from Cy Ranch. And Skylar Lewis, wide receiver from Sulphur Springs. Now, you can always look at star ratings and things like that. I like to look at offers just to see specifically like, okay, where are other teams putting this guy at? Where are they? Is it the same caliber of teams all going after this guy? And it was great to go through these and look at who they were able to beat out. We'll start with our guy, Cordorian Powell, right off the bat. UTSA, UNT. Oh, look at that. Arkansas State, Memphis, Tulsa, Sam Houston State were some of his offers. Love to see UTSA, UNT in-state teams, not necessarily in conference, but to beat them out and then to beat out Arkansas State in conference as well. For Kevon Carter, the linebacker out of Wagner, he had offers from Houston, Washington State, Arkansas State, UTEP, ULM, and SFA. He had the P5 offer, P4, I should say, with Houston, and then the former P5, now no man's land, Washington State. Interesting, though, they have an agreement with the Mountain West Conference, the former Pac-12 does. You know what? And we're going to do some cleanup there because now that I think about it, a very special listener, my dad, he listened to the last episode and he goes, "Hey, what's up with all this realignment? You talked about P4 and G5, and and for somebody, we're sickos. Most of us here are sickos, but there are a few people who are trying to get to know the sport on a they're more on a casual level. Not saying that as an insult. So yeah, we'll go through and we'll explain realignment, but I'll wait here in a sec, and we'll go through some of these guys. But Kevon Carter, Houston, Washington State, Arkansas State again, UTEP, ULM, SFA. Always nice to beat Arkansas State, especially after they hung 77 points on the Bobcats last season. Nice to beat them out, at least for some recruits. Revenge coming this way. Arkansas State, hey, I want it. I want to make it real. We tried to do this last year, and then they hung 77 on the Cats. So maybe some revenge. Nick Fisher, edge out of Cy Ranch. I like how we're just calling it edge now. I barely see DE or D end listed for a guy. They're an edge. They're an edge guy. But Nick Fisher, he had UTSA, UNT, Arkansas State, UTEP. Beaten in-state FBS teams, G5 level, but still in-state. And then in conference with Arkansas State. And then last one, Skylar Lewis, the wide receiver out of Sulphur Springs. He had UNT, Sam Houston State, SFA, and Lamar. Again, beating these in-state teams for these recruits. Texas is a recruiting hotbed, as we all know. So you want to keep them here. That's why they have the hashtag Take Back Texas. That's the whole thing that GJ Kinney and this coaching staff, it's part of their promotion for their recruiting push, is this Take Back Texas. And I mean, they definitely do that on the high school level. And then you go through the transfers, and a lot of them are coming back to Texas. Some of them are transferring in from Texas schools, but a lot of them went out of state and are now transferring back in state. And that's part of the push, is to keep these guys in Texas. And I think that's the part when you see a lot of other teams, some other teams, they get all bent out of shape about the Take Back Texas thing, hashtag Take Back Texas. Well, how can you take back Texas if you never had it? That's like, oh, okay, good one. Sure. But it's not necessarily taking back Texas in that sense. It's more like taking and bringing him back to Texas a lot of the time when they're out of state. That's a part of that initiative of taking back Texas. So that's a way to think about it. And there is a bit of a competitive nature to it. It's not all just that. There is a bit of taking it back from these other coaching staffs, these recruiting staffs. So there's a little bit of that as well. But speaking of 2025 recruiting, class of 2025 recruiting, we saw an interesting thing this weekend on X, Twitter, any of the social medias, Instagram. Honestly, I never get on Instagram, but I'm sure they were putting it out on there as well. A recruiting visit featuring a float down the San Marcos River. Always love to see that. We've seen it before. Party in the Park. Something started by Everett Withers, kept it going under Jake Spavital. GJ Kinney's kind of taking his own variation of it. And they're going tubing on these recruiting visits. It's very timely. It's nice to see because we see a lot of these teams busting out, NIL era, they're busting out Lamborghinis for their recruiting visits. UT specifically, right up the street in Austin, but even you see some Sunbelt teams. Georgia State was doing it. They had a Lamborghini out bringing guys in. And now this isn't anything Texas State's done. They did it last summer, horses and Ferraris. Remember that, everybody, where they had horses and Ferraris out at the stadium. That was pretty fun. And it's a nice way to just, promote on social media. And that yielded some commits for the Bobcats, as I'm sure the Lamborghini show for UT yielded some commits. But I just appreciated it where you're seeing a lot of this excess in recruiting and a lot of these programs flexing their money and doing a lot of things. And Texas State kept it simple. They're in a tube. Because I'll tell you this, those Lambos probably rented. Those tubes, those are owned. I personally, I am not a rich man. I own 4 tubes. Okay. I feel rich because of that. But you can own your own tube. You gotta rent that Lambo, and those insurance rates and all that. There's no insurance on my tube. And if you do it at the San Marcos River, I know a lot of people, a lot of love for Don's Fish Camp. Shout out to Don's. You can go floating there. That's probably the one of the OG floats in town. Free plug for Don's. It's a longer float though, and it costs money. It's 3 hours, and it costs some bit of money. If you do the San Marcos River, it's 45 minutes to an hour. It's free. Blow up your tube, jump right in. Right by campus, shows off everything. I think it's a great way promote your strengths, when you're recruiting, and that's a great way to promote your strengths here in Texas State. Definitely the San Marcos way. Not a ton of Lamborghinis in San Marcos. I'll be the first one to say that. But there are a ton of tubes, and there's a ton of good time. And if you can't promote the lavish, bougie, rich lifestyle of some of these other elite programs, you can at least show, hey, it's a good time down here. You can come here, you can start, you can play, and you can kick back and relax whenever you need to. Get out of practice, jump in that river, stay 72 degrees all year round. It's beautiful. But I loved that Tubes versus Lambos. I saw that one made because it got, it's slow time, summertime. They're gonna glob onto it. I'm surprised I wasn't assigned to write an article about the Tubes versus Lambos or anything like that, just because there's not a whole lot going on. But a lot of these obviously went around to some of these other fan bases, and they felt it was a pop shot at them or anything like that. And it wasn't. I don't think that was aimed at anybody. I think it was just Texas State showing what they do. But I don't think that was an intentional pop shot at any of the Lamborghinis or any of the other cool stuff that we're seeing going on in recruiting. But I liked it. Felt like it was Texas State's little brand of recruiting right there. Don't need Lambos, man. Just get a tube. You can go get a thing to blow up your tube for like $5. Plug it in the wall and get them at HEB. Save money. You go to any of those, it's like $2 in quarters or whatever. Just buy one of those, blow it up yourself. You can even plug it in to the cigarette lighter in your car. Do we still call them cigarette lighters? Phone chargers now, basically, right? But let's talk a little bit about realignment. Let's do a little bit of a breakdown. We'll keep this quick because most of us listening, what we're talking about with everything, but it's really, really kind of funky and up in the air. I didn't do a ton of prep, so this may be sloppy, but I doubt it. I'm kind of immersed in college football for my job and everything, so I'm pretty familiar with everything that's going on. Um, and we can't go. Obviously, realignment happens all the time. Conferences shake up, conferences end, they dissolve, they reemerge. All sorts of crazy stuff happens. Doesn't happen as much for football, especially at the FBS level, as it does for some other sports. But I guess if we're talking about the more modern variation of everything that's going on, we really got to go back to probably like 2012 is far enough when Texas A&M jumped to the SEC. Now, obviously, here in Texas, we all know Texas versus Texas A&M. It's a big rivalry. It's one that's gone back for a long, long time. It's one of the biggest rivalries in sports. It's definitely one of the biggest in college sports. And when they left for the SEC, that was to get a recruiting edge in the state of Texas. It would be the one SEC team in the state of Texas, a recruiting hotbed. And it was a smart move. They moved over and they caught, it struck the iron while it was hot at a good time with Johnny Manziel right there at that time and everything. So they had it was a good move. But honestly, even back then, what is it, 12 years ago, when that happened, I was in my head, I was like, okay, it's a matter of time before Texas makes that move. Who knows when? And it wasn't for a while until 10 years later, where not just Texas, but OU decides. It was 2022. They decide it was broken actually by Houston Chronicle, Brent Zimmerman. Shout out to him. It came out that Texas and Oklahoma had plans to go to the SEC. Plans that took a couple years, but it's finally been realized where they are now in the SEC. They had to jump through some hoops and do a whole bunch of things, but now they are in the SEC. That right there was the big domino. Now I talked about Texas A&M. 10 years prior, because I felt like that set up why Texas was eventually like, okay, we got to move to the SEC. And then they brought Oklahoma with them. Two really big programs, two biggest programs in the Big 12. So that left the Big 12 searching for answers, needing to do something. They need to figure out what their next move. And they've added a handful of teams. They've added Cincinnati. They've added BYU. This season alone, they're having Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah are all joining the Big 12. So the Big 12 is now 16 teams. So they decided to make up for it by numbers. And honestly, I like the Big 12 when the new variation of it. When you look at some of these matchups that are going to come out of that, it's actually going to be pretty fun. But at the same time as those teams left the Pac-12, other teams left to go to the Big Ten, which left the Pac-12 by other teams, USC, UCLA. Other teams left to go to the Big Ten, which left the Pac-12 with two teams, Washington State and Oregon State. And that basically dissolves that conference when there's only two. And that's why when we say P5, we're talking about the five conferences: the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC, the Big 10, and when those are the quintessential Power 5 programs. And then when we talk of a group of five, Sun Belt for Texas State, Conference USA, the American Athletic, the MAC, and I'm missing another one. Which one am I missing there? But those are the five G5 teams. And so now there's still five G5s, but now it's four P4s. No longer P5, Power 5 programs. It's now the P4. And for Washington State and Oregon State, where that leaves them is they have now come to an agreement with the Midwest Conference. There we go. That's what it was. That's the other G5. I was like, which one am I forgetting here? Mountain West. Sorry, Midwest. Mountain West. Mid Atlantic is the MAC. Mountain West is what I'm thinking of here. The Mountain West they made an agreement with the remaining teams of the Pac-12. So Oregon State and Washington State are going to be playing against Mountain West teams this season. So yeah, a lot of shakeup, a lot has changed. The Sun Belt is still at 14 teams, as all of us know, after they added 4 a couple years back. But I can imagine there's going to be more changes. Who knows what it's going to look like? Well, and when it's all said and done, I've mentioned it before that it is probably in Texas State's best interest to position itself to get into that P4. So when we're talking about the money, that's the biggest difference. When we talk about Power 5 programs, Power 4, sorry, it's still got to get used to that. P4, when we're talking about them compared to G5, the money is quite a bit. We're talking for P4, just for showing up, the TV rights deals, it's between 30 and 50 million, depending on which conference you're in. For the G5, it's between 3 and 7 million. So that's a lot. That's just funds right off the bat are different. They're able to, it's a lot more capital to work with right off the bat, and which you use for recruiting, which you use to build facilities, you use for other things. And so when that happens year after year, just on that, and we're not even talking about bigger stadiums, and they sell out their stadiums and merch, much bigger merch pushes for these P4 programs with storied fan bases that have been rabid for a long time. It's a different animal. They make a lot more money. And there's a lot of this talk of a private equity firms getting in the mix, and they're going to split off these P4 teams from the G5 and splintering the FBS basically. And if that does happen, that's why it's in Texas State's best interest to kind of position itself to get into the P4. But even if they don't, I think they're in a really good position in the G5. We talked about this, I believe, on the last episode, which is where this whole realignment thing came up, where even if they don't, they're still in my opinion, the best G5. There could be some argument. Their AAC is pretty good too. I could hear the arguments, but in my opinion, I think the Sun Belt is the best G5 conference. If they're in the G5, you don't want to go lateral to another G5 conference. I think they're in a really good position where they're at. As much fun as the AAC would be to play like UTSA, UNT, I like the Bobcats being in the Sun Belt. But if there is a chance to move up and and get some of that extra money, that extra capital, that grows this place even more. And that's kind of where it's starting to look like the trajectory is heading, where it could splinter off. But even if it does splinter off and say Texas State is still in the G5, I think this place has proven enough, and they've proven it before, even before they made the jump to FBS. You may have to go back to the 80s, but they did prove that you can galvanize this place, and if you produce a winner, good things can happen. '05 is even another good example with Barrick Neely, who's back as the running back coach. Um, where even if it is more a niche product, where back then Division I AA is what it was called, FCS nowadays. If it is more niche, that you can still have a respectable program, it can still make it profitable, it can still make an impact on the local area. So I think it would be best for the Bobcats to position themselves, but I don't think it's the death of the program or the death of the momentum for this place if it does splinter and they don't move up. Because who's to say that if that were to happen, say there is this G5 conference, well, it might not be a bad thing to be, I don't know, a top 10, top 5, a perennial top of the billing of that league. That's not a bad way to go. So, it's not it seems dark and gloomy. And I think with the last episode, it did kind of it made it seem like that when I was discussing that, where they got to go P4 or it's all over, and it's definitely not the case. But in their best interest, though, for sure, with the way everything's shaken up with realignment and all of that. But hopefully, I shed a little clarity on that. If not, you can let me know, and we'll try again. But before we go, we'll end with some. There's a lot of rat poison going on about the Bobcats. If you're wondering, what's rat poison? What are you talking about there? Um, I think it was popular. I don't know if it was coined. It was at least popularized by Nick Saban talking about rat poison, and that's when the media starts saying all these good things about your program, your team. Usually, it's a coach saying this. Too much good things in the press. It's like rat poison. You'll take it in, and it'll kill you. There's been a lot of rat poison. We've seen some of the coaches, GJ Kinney and some of these other coaches, they'll quote tweet some good news with a rat and a dead emoji, kind of symbolizing that they're not taking in the rat poison. But you know what? That's okay. We're here. We're here for rat poison. We're going to talk about rat poison. And we'll make this a weekly dose of rat poison. This one's from our the wizard, great producer over here, Zachary Webb. He sent me some of these, some good rat poison. We have NCAA Football Nation. They had a list of their best G5 quarterbacks. Number 4, Jordan McLeod. Overall quarterbacks, number 3, Jordan McLeod. So there you go. Other people taking notice. Jordan McLeod. I mean, you win Sun Belt Player of the Year. I mean, people are going to notice. But then college football matchups, they give Texas State a 3.2% chance to make the college football playoff. Those are the 10th best odds of any Group of 5 program. So it's not all rat poison. UTSA is number 2 on that list at 15.6%. So can't all be great. Beat them out for some 2025 recruits. Still got those odds on us. And that's something that I really hope. We just talked about Jordan McLeod, and he's going to matter for this next part. But because TJ Finley last year, after they beat Baylor, asked him about UTSA. Hey, what do you know about UTSA? Got that game coming up next week. It's a big rivalry. And he said, I didn't even know it was a rivalry. Didn't know anything about it. And that was a week before the game. Then they went out and they lost 20-13. And it was disappointing that the quarterback of the team didn't realize that it was a rivalry. I hope Jordan McLeod knows that it is a rivalry and they do take that one very seriously, because it is 5-0 in favor of the Roadrunners. And this is as good a year for that to change as any. UTSA is still pretty good. I don't think they're as good. They're going to be missing Frank Harris. They're missing some really key guys, but pretty loaded. Traylor does know how to recruit himself down in San Antonio. But I just hope that gets through to the players. This is a rivalry. A lot of new players. We just talked about all new transfers. Obviously, those 19 that played last year, they're going to know, okay, yeah, we lost that one. All those fans showed up, almost 60,000 fans, almost a neutral site. Sorry, I'll make the Roadrunners mad again by saying that they hated when I said that last year. But hey, they didn't get close to 60,000 the rest of the season, okay? And it was 60,000, 56,000. Sorry, I'm rounding up over here. But it's a big game and it matters, and I hope that they know this and they take it very seriously. Because I don't know if I can stomach 6-0. I didn't think I could stomach 5-0. Then they did 8 wins, bowl win, soften the blow. It still hurts a little bit, when I think about 20-13 from last year or any of them. I've been waiting 12 years. 12 years. Long, hard, miserable years. Not all of them, but last year wasn't miserable. There's a lot of them. The 8 previous before last year were pretty miserable. 12 years, though, for that to happen. I needed to happen. I wasn't even reporting on the first one. I went with my brother, who's a UTSA grad. I went with him to the Alamo Dome, a dump. Went with him, and he got to rub it in my face. Sat in the student section for UTSA because he's a UTSA student. That was a bad choice. Bad choice. Bad move all around. But I've been waiting since then. I need it to happen. Big win for the Bobcats, though. I was at my parents' recently for Father's Day. And they have a gator, a buggy type thing that they drive around, and it's got a Texas State emblem on it. Not UTSA, Texas State. That's big. That's big. That's my mom putting it on there. It's a big get for the Bobcats right there. Do appreciate that. But all right, that'll do it. That'll do it for this episode. We'll be back more frequency. I went to the beach, as I was saying, Father's Day. A lot's been happening in the month of June. A lot busier than I anticipated for the month of June, but we're gonna get it cooking. Check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/whennoworgetbent, WNOGB.com for any merch. I got the hat on right now if you're watching on our YouTube page. My daughter's asleep in my bedroom. Otherwise, I would have put a shirt on. I've just got the Texas State shirt on. But I've got the Mad Cat on the hat today. So go check that out. If you're not watching on YouTube, you should go check it out. When Now We're Get Bent on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that great stuff. Check us out on X, Twitter, at When Now We're Get Bent. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff on all our platforms. It helps us out for sure. We're going to get a good push to get to 500 subscribers this summer. That's what we want. We're getting close. We're getting close to that. Thanks to TGC. Thanks to Chilsey. Thanks to my guy, the wizard, Zachary Webb. Go check out his podcast, Deaton Street. It's on YouTube, Deaton Street. Deaton, Deaton Street. More tech savvy stuff. My guy, he's a wizard. That's why I call him that when it comes to all the tech stuff. And so now he does a pod talking a little bit about that. So check him out there, Deaton Street. And thank you, sickos. Without you, we'd be shouting into the void. We owe you more consistency. We owe you more frequency. We're going to bring it to you. We're going to bring it to you, sickos. Thank you guys for still tuning in and loving the pod. Can't wait for this season. 2024, year of the Bobcat, coming up. All right, everybody. Win now or get bent.